Welcome everybody to the X Factor podcast. Today we're getting into it with the first week of free agency. Didn't want to post anything too early, just get everything to flow the first week. And so far everything has just been crazy this first week of free agency. Everything has slowed down more, but we're gonna be getting into it. And go through some of the teams and some of their big signings. Follow the Twitter X Factor Sports. Follow the Twitter or TikTok X Factor Sports, and subscribe for more content like this. Or if you're a professional wrestling fan, boom, there you go. I have content all over Twitter for that. I do more on Twitter than what I do on YouTube or TikTok, but that's one thing to consider there. Start off with the Buffalo Bills. They didn't really do anything big. They did get Curtis Samuel on a 3-year, $30 million contract, which is it's an alright signing. It's someone to replace Gabe Davis, who has left for this offseason, signed elsewhere. He's also Curtis Samuel is a guy who you can be your second man, third man, slot, anywhere around the field. Last 2 years, he's had about 60 catches, averaged about 600 yards, 4 touchdowns in each of those last 2 seasons. So he can easily be your the number 2 receiver for the Bills. Can't wait to see what he could produce under that Bills offense. Matt Collins, I know he was going crazy with his year with the Raiders. Did not do really as much with the Falcons, but he is coming to the Buffalo Bills. And I feel like he can go back to his Raider ways with Josh Allen at quarterback, because Desmond Ridder, let's be honest, is not panned out too well. The Buffalo Bills, they brought back Mitch Trubisky. Deion Dawkins re-signed. And other than that, there hasn't been really much with the Bills. They released a lot of people. Their main secondary got released. So hopefully, it's very intriguing to see what they're going to do over the next couple of months through the draft and all this, trying to get their secondary back up and going again. Now, we get on to the Miami Dolphins. They didn't really do much either. They one of the people that I will mention, Neville Gallimore, underrated defensive tackle in my opinion. He's a guy that you can get in the middle and into the run game and try to stop it. He's also a guy who can do well in the pass game as a defensive tackle, trying to get pressures. So under that new offense, that new defense, and Anthony Weaver, maybe they can get something going with him. They did bring in Shaquille Barrett, who was released by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, started free agency. Shaquille Barrett, he hasn't been the same in the last 2 years, but maybe you can find a little gold in there still in that body left to him. His peak years were Tampa Bay, or his early years in Tampa Bay. Just the last 2 years, he hasn't really panned out to anything. He's had last 2 years, he's had 3 and 4 sacks. So maybe they will get something going with Shaquille Barrett, and they can hopefully build that defense better than ever. Jordan Brooks signed a 3-year contract with the Miami Dolphins. That's an underrated but also very good linebacker that they've picked up from Seattle. Jordan Brooks, he's gonna be able to be a guy that can go in there and read the field, be your number one running linebacker. And I feel like no one gives him the credit he deserves for being in that position, unless you're one of those, people that get into the film and all that. Also, they signed Anthony Walker, Kendall Fuller, who is out of his big years, but could still perform when you need him to at times. And then they bring in Jordan Poyer, a rival from the Buffalo Bills, who just got released, and this is going to be one of many people who have went to rival teams in free agency. That's why in the title I'm calling this NFL season payback season because so many people have went to rival teams. It's insane on how many people have went to the rival teams. And I'm going to keep going through with more of this as I keep going down, but it's actually crazy. So this season, I will be calling it the payback season for every team. As of for Miami, that's some of their big signings. And other than that, it's just been a bunch of depth. New England Patriots, they picked up some underrated stuff, brought back a bunch of people. One of the things they brought in was Antonio Gibson, who is, his first couple years in Washington it was very, like, you feel like he could be somebody. Last 2 years, it's just been way down the hill. Last year was a disaster. In my opinion, he can definitely be running back number 2 behind Stevenson. Other than that, I think Antonio Gibson, he's an alright signing for them. Like I said, they didn't really do much in that free agency way. They re-signed Hunter Henry. They signed Austin Hooper, but nothing really breaking down everything. New York Jets, this was an interesting one. They have signed Tyron Smith to a 1-year, up to $20 million contract. And I'm going to get into that one because as a Cowboys fan, see, what you can get out of him. And if you're a Jets fan, whatever, and you know who Tyron Smith is, and don't know how much he has left in him, he's good for another year. He will be good for another year. He had an outstanding year last year. If he doesn't play, if he doesn't do practice and just is there for practice, like how they did with Andrew Whitworth in his last year, he's gonna be ready to go all year. And he's definitely gonna be the main focal point of that Jets offensive line going into next year with Aaron Rodgers coming off that Achilles tear. So that's another big thing to look at. Go over to Baltimore. Derrick Henry signed a 2-year, $16 million contract that has a max value up to $20 million and includes a $9 million guarantee. Man, Derrick Henry, I did not expect him to go to Baltimore under any circumstance. I had him going to Dallas. Thought he was going to go to Dallas. Dallas said they were going all in. I'll get into that rant here in a little bit. And to me, it's a very big signing for Baltimore. Derrick Henry is a man who has dominated the running back scene for the last couple of years. He's also a man that can power through things. The last couple of years, his last 3 years have been pretty solid. 2021, he didn't get 1,000 yards, but he also got hurt. Last year, he had 1,164 yards, 12 touchdowns. That's still under that awful Tennessee Titans offensive line that they had last year. So under the Baltimore offensive line, man, they could probably get some couple. They could probably get about a max 2-3 years out of Derrick Henry, especially with Lamar taking. He'll take some runs, so make sure Derrick doesn't get much damage in the body. But Baltimore, they had a home run on the contract, on the contract for Derrick Henry, and expect them to do a lot with him in that unique offense that they have with Lamar Jackson. Cincinnati Bengals, they have quite done themselves quite well in the free agency pool, in my opinion. They signed Zach Moss to a 2-year contract. They released Joe Mixon, which I feel like it was one of those things coming. It was going to happen. Joe Mixon has been with the Baltimore Ravens, has been with the Bengals for 7-8 years maybe. He racked up 1,000 yards last year, had 9 touchdowns. And he is going to Houston, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But the replacement is Zach Moss. Not as big of an upgrade, but maybe they find a little gem in Braden Allen or Blake Corum in the draft and find something there. Mike Gesicki, they signed Mike Gesicki. Not really much going there. Um, Von Bell, they signed Von Bell, but one of the big things was Geno Stone. He signed a 2-year, $15 million contract with a $6 million bonus. Geno Stone was one of the people that led in the interception column last year with DeRon Bland. He was good, very good last year. And that's just another one of the players that went from a rival team to another rival team. He was involved with Baltimore. He went over to Cincinnati. It's an actually crazy. That's another one that goes there. Geno Stone, he's gonna be very good. I feel like he's gonna go in there, be the number one guy for that safety wise, and they're gonna get a lot of turnovers out of him. You know you're going to, especially with that many interceptions you seen last year. Maybe he can be like the the Trayvon Diggs of the safety group. So that could be something to look at. The Cleveland Browns, they signed Jameis Winston to a 1-year deal, which is big because Deshaun Watson, I've said this multiple times, Deshaun Watson is not the guy in Cleveland. They overpaid him. They went overhead. Bad organizations make bad mistakes, and this was another bad organization making a bad mistake. And I could see Jameis Winston taking that role at starter, given a max 5-6 weeks. He's probably in there. Especially with the new addition that they just brought in, Jerry Jeudy, traded to the Cleveland Browns in exchange for a 5th and 6th round pick. Now, Cleveland has got Jerry Jeudy and Mari Cooper on both 5th and 6th round picks. That is a fleece coming from. So, yes, I did say they're a bad organization, but you got to think Dallas's organization, they're just delusional at this point. And with Denver, I don't know what they're thinking. Trading Jerry Jeudy away like that for just a 5th and a 6th. And obviously they got rid of Russ. Denver got rid of Russ too, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. But if you have those weapons and you can't win with those, especially with Nick Chubb coming back, who knows if he's going to be the same. He should be benched by week 5, and then James Winston takes his spot. So that's one way to look at it. Cleveland, they re-signed Zadarius Smith to a 2-year deal. They signed Devin Bush, who was another guy from Pittsburgh. The guy from Pittsburgh that they're bringing in, another rival player coming into a rival organization. So that's a big one right there. Now we go to the Pittsburgh Steelers, where I feel like they're low-key the winners of this free agency. They're one of the winners in these free agency this first week. They have signed Patrick Queen, which, if you don't know, he is the second linebacker in that Ravens group behind Roquan Smith, and who is just another good linebacker that you can come in. And he's going to be there with Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt. He's going to be with that group. That's a scary-looking group right there. Especially with how they blitz TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. Patrick Queen, he's going to be another ruthless one there. And plus, the kid, he's only 24 years old. So they're going to get some good years out of him. Plus the mentorship from Highsmith and TJ Watt and that whole defensive group. It's going to be insane. They brought in Dante Jackson. They acquired a trade from the Carolina Panthers along with a 2024 6th round and Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson's now on his way to the Carolina Panthers, and Dante Jackson is now with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, that's another underrated pick, in my opinion, to bring in. And with your cornerback group, also getting rid of Patrick Peterson in the process. making their defense stronger and stronger. But the main ones that we're talking about here, like the two things we're talking about here, they're two quarterbacks. Russell Wilson signs with them on a new year, or on a 1 year contract. Boom. Kenny Pickett thinking he's going to be the number 2 guy. Nope, they ship him out to Philadelphia, and they acquired Justin Fields with a 6th round pick. Fleeced, in my opinion. They got Justin Fields only on a 6th round pick. That's crazy. Because Dallas traded for Trey Lance, and they had to trade more for him, and he's played only like 3 games. So the fact that Pittsburgh only gave them a 6th round, they better hope that 6th round pick better become like Tom Brady 2.0. Because other than that, you're just getting fleeced. And Russell Wilson, he had a sneaky year last year. He had a sneaky good year last year. Yes, they didn't go to the playoffs or they didn't have a good record, but he had a good stat line. He was top 10 in most of the stats for a quarterback. Justin Fields, who is good but needs the mentorship plus the weapons there. And yes, they did have DJ Moore last year, but the way he still has to run around and do all that, you can't throw to one guy all the time. You have to throw to multiple guys. Now you have Russell Wilson to learn from, another guy who was like Justin Fields in his early years. Learning under that tree with Mike Tomlin in there, Pittsburgh is to be one of the dark horses coming into this season with how good this free agency path has came for them. Plus you still got the draft. Houston Texans, they get Joe Mixon acquired in a trade, which they did. The first thing was that they released him, but they ended up trading for him in exchange for a 7th round pick. Joe Mixon, he's getting older, but he's still a guy who still had 1,000 yards last year. DeMeco Ryans, he was very active coming into this free agency this year. And bringing him in, he's going to help with Devin Singletary, or not Devin Singletary, Dameon Pierce. That's who it was. Dameon Pierce, who blew up in his first year, didn't really do much his second year. Boom, he could be behind Joe Mixon, run the pack, and, help mentor your younger running backs. DeMeco Ryans is secretly going to be one of the candidates for Coach of the Year next year, in my opinion. Houston Texans, they were just very active in this offseason, getting D'Amico Autry. They got Danielle Hunter under a 2-year, $49 million contract. Huge for that defense. And you also got Willie Anderson on the other corner while you have Danielle Hunter. Oh, Houston might be the best Texas team next year. Not saying that they were this year, but they weren't. They're probably going to be next year, depending on how Dallas finishes out the offseason. Azeez Al-Shire signed him to a 3-year deal. They didn't really get much big signings, but they got signings to help with the depth that could potentially get better. But there was a lot of them on here that they brought in. But Danielle Hunter, DeMeco Autry, Joe Mixon. DeMeco Autry, he isn't the same as he used to be, but he could still, go in there and get some big plays out of him. Indianapolis Colts, Joe Flacco signs a 1-year deal. I believe he was going to retire, but apparently after that one playoff game, he's like, I need to play one more, I guess. Only thing that the Colts did, they just re-signed a lot of people. And if they did sign someone, it was someone for probably depth reasons. So, Jacksonville Jaguars, Mac Jones trade for a 6th rounder. He's going to be joining Trevor Lawrence, who was drafted in the same year. Mac Jones, the downfall for Mac Jones is hard because he was a national champion, went over with the Patriots, looked like he's going to be Tom Brady 2.0. First year makes the playoffs, blows out in the playoff game. Hasn't been the same since. And Mac Jones, I still feel like he can go. Like, he could still be a good quarterback and be a good quarterback in this league. And I think that one of the main problems was the Bill Belichick ending of an era in Pittsburgh, or not Pittsburgh, in New England. That was one of the downfalls for Mac Jones. They're at the end of their hurrah or whatever. So they're, and those teams were not great. These last couple of years, these teams have not been great for Pittsburgh. So having Mac Jones under Trevor Lawrence, hell, maybe he comes in for maybe a game and see how he does, and maybe teams get interested. Maybe he becomes a starter next year. But Mac Jones, I still feel like he can come in and be a quarterback in this league. Gabe Davis signed a 3-year, $39 million contract with a max value of $50 million. Big contract. A big contract for a guy I feel like who is inconsistent a lot. Like there's be those games where it'd be like, oh my God, Gabe Davis, and then you'd be like a couple games where it's like, oh, where you at? Where, like, what are you doing? And we've seen that a lot. I feel like one of the big where he was at tippy top was that playoff game against Kansas City with 13 seconds left. And then after that, his name actually came out there through the game, and knowing who he is. And after that, it's just been inconsistent. He'll have his good, he can have good plays. That's one of the reasons why he got that contract. But if you can get him to do it every game, every play, get those good plays, be a number one receiver, then he's worth that money. Azura Cleveland signed a 3-year, $28 million deal offensive guard. Another guy they need to beef up that offensive line, get Trevor Lawrence going. Good signing there. Mitch Morse, an older center, coming in. Another good contract, bringing in, making sure that Trevor Lawrence is still going to be, functional. Because after what happened last year, it was rough. They hit a downfall last year. And I truly believe that if they go the way they're going with Trevor Lawrence is just going to be another Matthew Stafford, in my opinion. Number one pick, big hype coming around you. Going to a team that, where the organization could be bad at times, but, when you have a good coach around, this time they have a good coach around Doug Peterson, but Matthew Stafford never had that until later on. But bringing in offensive linemen, big ones for him. Bringing in Arik Armstead and Darnell Savage are big, huge deals. Arik Armstead, of course, was with the 49ers. They released him. He's going to raise havoc over there with Jacksonville. And Darnell Savage coming out over from the Packers. He's going to be another guy to look forward to into this defense that Jacksonville's producing for next season. Tennessee Titans, a team that they went very heavy on in free agency. And let's just say they had a very good one. Tony Pollard signed a 3-year, $24 million contract, no longer with the Dallas Cowboys. And Tony Pollard, he can go. He can still go. Despite what you've seen from him last year, he wasn't used right in that system Dallas was doing last year. That wasn't the right way to get Tony Pollard going. Tennessee Titans is going to be a perfect fit under the new head coaching hire. And plus, also having to replace Derrick Henry is a big deal too. But Brian Callahan, he's an offensive-minded coach. It's going to help. But one thing I find funny is before Mike Vrabel got fired, it looked like they were just trying to tear this team apart. Looked like they were just trying to tear this team into oblivion. And then they come out, sign Tony Pollard, sign Calvin Ridley, Kenneth Murray, Chidobe Uzie. They come out and get these big contracts. It's like, why couldn't you do that when Vrabel was around? Maybe you'd get something from him. Maybe it was a way to get him out of the building, Not trying to point fingers, but maybe. Because here's one of the things. They signed Calvin Ridley to a 4-year, $92 million contract. Okay. Well, they refused to pay A.J. Brown $100 million, and look where he's at now. So they're paying a guy who's older than A.J. Brown nearly about the same money as what A.J. Brown asked for. And they said no, but they gave it to Calvin Ridley. I'm just saying that's a little sketchy to me. But Calvin Ridley, huge contract. It's a little bit of an overpay in my opinion. But let's see how he goes with Brian Callahan and this new offense that they're bringing in. We've seen the Callahan offense with Cincinnati, so maybe, just maybe, this will be their main guy with DeAndre Hopkins, might add, and Will Levis at quarterback. That's gonna be one duo right there. Kenneth Murray from the Chargers signed a 2-year contract. He's another guy to help him with depth, with how in depth this team was last year, and how many people that were no names on that team last year that were starting. Bringing guys in like this is really gonna help give confidence to the team and all that going into next year. And then Chidobe Uzie signed a 3-year contract. He was with Cincinnati for a couple years, with Dallas for multiple years. Still a cornerback that can go and get you interceptions, get deflections, and be a good cornerback in this league. Denver didn't really do much, but I'm gonna put down what they did wrong. Releasing Justin Simmons. What the fuck are you doing? Releasing Justin Simmons. Out of anyone you release your number one safety. One of the best safeties in the league, I might add you. And you just release him, you can't trade him? And they haven't done that with France either. I have the names right here. They have signed Michael Burton, Lil Jordan Humphrey, Malcolm Roach, Brandon Jones, PJ Locke, Will Lutz. That's all with who they signed after releasing Russ and Justin Simmons. I don't know what this inconsistency from this team. It's like 1 minute you go, "Oh, this team's looking very good," to, "What the fuck are they doing?" "Oh, to, this team's looking very good. What the fuck are they doing?" And right now I'm in the stage, what the fuck are they doing? I don't know if Sean Payton's slowly trying to get himself fired, but this is just awful. But Denver's not. If they don't get a quarterback in this draft, they're going to be screwed next year. So, and free agency ain't helping them much either. And as we go on to the Kansas City Chiefs, your Super Bowl champions, getting into it, they main signing was Marquise Brown. He was with the Arizona Cardinals, coming over to the Chiefs. And first thing I instantly think is he's going to be Tyreek Hill in this system. He's going to be another Tyreek Hill. Now, I believe Marquise Brown's younger by a couple years. I believe he is 27. Oh, he's only 26, so he's younger than what I thought. Yeah, he is just a couple years younger from Tyreek Hill. And yet he's still fast. And his years in the NFL, he's only cracked 1,000 yards once, and that was the year before they traded him to Arizona. Arizona, they didn't do nothing with him. But I expect Andy Reid to pull out some tricks out of a hat and do something with Marquise Brown. And Patrick Mahomes, that's just another speedster from Patrick Mahomes to throw to, which is huge after the atrocity we've seen from wide receiver drops last year. So huge signing from them. Las Vegas Raiders, they didn't really do much, but they did sign a big one here in Christian Wilkins, a 4-year, $110 million contract. He's been an outstanding player for the Miami Dolphins. He's going to be an outstanding player for the Las Vegas Raiders. My main thing is how this Raiders team is very odd, in my opinion. On paper, some of the positions you look at it and you go, damn, this team could go to the playoffs. But in my opinion, they've always been that one quarterback away. And I believe their quarterback one right now is Aiden O'Connell, who could be that guy. We've seen about a couple of games from him where he played good. But as you look into the Raiders, you go look into this team, and there's a good chance that they could pick up a top quarterback from this year's draft and be confident with that guy. But other than that, Christian Wilkins, huge signing, 4-year contract. He's gonna be a major player with this defense. Going over to the New York Giants, they didn't really do much. They signed Devin Singletary. Well, they did do something big. They traded for Brian Burns from the Panthers with a 5th round, along with a 5th round pick in exchange of a 2024 5th rounders and 2025 conventional 5th rounders. And Burns also signed a 5-year deal with the Giants up to worth $150 million. Huge, I might say. And that Giants defense is just gonna keep looking stronger and stronger and stronger. Well, on the defensive line side, at least. But when you look at it, team still has a lot of work to do. They still need to get receivers. They still need to get tight ends. Their offensive line's horrible. Safe corners, not really existent. Safeties, not really existent. They got McFadden at linebacker, so that's a little bit of a sleeper one there. But the offense is what's going to kill them next year. Well, and if they don't get some done in the draft. And they just lost Saquon Barkley, so that doesn't help their situation either. And you're putting all this money on Daniel Jones, who got hurt halfway through the year, and then you put Tommy DeVito in. He did all right. But yeah, this team, it's like they keep bringing these good pieces, but they need to bring in the pieces to help on the offensive side. They're doing whatever they can to help the defense, but looking over on the offense, it's like they haven't had a solid number 1 receiver in probably 3-4 years. They haven't had a solid number 1 tight end in fucking forever. They haven't had a solid offensive line in fucking forever. They haven't had a solid quarterback play since, well, of course, 2021. But other than that, it's just been awful. Straight up awful. But as for the New York Giants, they did get a big signing of Brian Burns, but they could be using that contract money for a lot of new stuff coming in, and especially with some of the free agents that are still left. They still got Kevin Zeitler left. They still got Trent Brown left, so you can put on the offensive line. Odell Beckham, maybe potential return. Tyler Boyd. Like, you got to bring in some of these pieces. Mike Williams, who just got released. DJ Chark. Like, these are some names. Michael Thomas, who just got released from the Saints. And yet, they're in here putting $150 million contract trade for Brian Burns. Which he's still going to be a good player for him, but you still need to look at the offensive side. And then here you go, I'm going to call this team, oh man, I hate this team to death, but I got to say it, the best organization, in my opinion. Philadelphia Eagles have came in here, and they, after what happened last season, fucking awful ending. And they come in, they trade for Kenny Pickett. Okay, he could be a good, solid backup. They re-sign Landon Dickerson. Great. They bring in Brian Huff, very underrated player. Devin White, a very good linebacker they're bringing in. Re-sign C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who after a year from Detroit decides to go back to Philadelphia. Which is funny to me because when he left, the fans hated him. He hated the fans. Suddenly, next thing you know, boom, they're back together. So that just shows how much money can, change your mind in life. But the main thing is they signed Saquon Barkley, who, of course, was a New York Giant, going over to a rival team. And going into rival teams in other divisions, it's like, okay, just I'm not gonna, okay, cool. But when you're going to rival competitors in the NFC East, oh god, it's just gonna get it gets ugly. When you talk about the most toxic division in sports, it is the NFC East. Between the NFC East and the AFC East, I don't know which one's worse. Well, even the NFC South at times, but man, they bring in Saquon Barkley on a 3-year deal, and we always know what happens after big contracts like this, but with Saquon Barkley still under a solid offensive line, it could get scary for everyone except the Eagles. They already know what they're getting out of them. Um, but they had a very good offseason or free agency so far, getting players that they were weak at last year, and plus getting a running back after they had a good year with DeAndre Swift. But Saquon Barkley can make you do a lot more with that offense. So, like I said, Philadelphia Eagles, best organization. Hate to say it, but right now it's true. And then coming out of the ones where this one kind of pissed me off. So, Dan Quinn, I loved you, man, but after what I've seen, what you've done with this team, might not like you anymore. First off, a lot of signings here, and this is also what could have been if Dallas decided not to get their head out of their own asses. They signed Austin Eckler, pretty good, pretty good. People are saying that he's just washed it. It was a bad signing. I think it was a great signing. He's a guy that can come in there. He can catch the ball. He can run the ball. He could do it all in a bag of chips. Tyler Biadasz, a former Dallas Cowboy, up to a 3-year, $30 million contract. Solid signing. Dorrance Armstrong, a 3-year, $45 million contract. Huge for a guy that did very little to very good, but very inconsistent. A lot of money thrown around right there. That could bite you, maybe. Dante Fowler, who was part of that Dan Quinn defense last year. Bobby Wagner, who, last couple of years had some talks with Dallas, but never really got to one. But now Dan Quinn finally got his linebacker. And they got Frankie Louvu, who is another linebacker that, maybe if Dallas would have got their head out of the asses, they could have tried to get one. And they got Jeremy Chin. Very active in Dan Quinn's first year. Plus, could be getting a quarterback. I know they're not getting Caleb Williams because Chicago's obviously has made that clear that they're picking Caleb Williams. This team is very odd. A very odd signings that we got here because a lot of them are from Dallas. So of course, Dan Quinn knows them a lot. But you're throwing money around, like some big money around guys like Biadasz and Dorrance Armstrong. $30 million and $45 million. I don't even think they're worth half that. Like, geez, man, you're throwing that stuff around quick. I think the best signing, Bobby Wagner and Austin Eckler were their best signings. But I did believe they've overpaid on quite a few, which could bite them. Chicago, another big offseason free agency for them. Signing DeAndre Swift, big contract. His year in Philadelphia was very good. I feel like it's not going to be the same in Chicago, but if they have the good offensive line and they have good goings for them and the running back side, DeAndre Swift could be about as good as what he was with Philadelphia. Trading for Keenan Allen. I did not expect this one. Keenan Allen traded to the Chicago Bears for a 4th-round pick. After one of his best years, he's only traded for a 4th-round pick. I don't know what the Chargers are doing. They're cleaning house. They're cleaning house on a lot of players. They just, Harbaugh came in there and just threw everyone out. Except for, of course, Justin Herbert. And I expect the Chargers to throw a lot of Michigan into that team during the draft. But Keenan Allen, him and DJ Moore with a potential Caleb Williams. Man, that is something to look at. That is something to be very excited about. Plus, you have DeAndre Swift. And if Caleb Williams is really who he is, if he's gonna be, because it's either he's a Patrick Mahomes or he's a Johnny Manziel. With how much hype he's getting, it's either one of those things. You're nothing in between. If you're nothing in between, then you might as well just pack your bags now. But if he's the Patrick Mahomes that everyone's saying he could be, Chicago has their quarterback for the next 20 years, in my opinion. And also they got Kevin Byard. Didn't really do much with the Philadelphia Eagles, but coming in with Chicago, um, he could be a very good mentor to a lot of the players on the safety side of things. So, Detroit didn't really do much huge here. It's just a lot of re-signs. Packers, they were very active in signing Josh Jacobs and Xavier McKinney in big contracts, and also releasing Aaron Jones in the process. That one shocked me because they bring in Josh Jacobs, and you sit there and think, you can have the best running back duo in the league, Aaron Jones, Josh Jacobs, and they blinked up, just released him. Like, I get money could be an issue, but imagine what you could do with that offense with those two. Amazing. But they did end up with A.J. Dillon, which he's still good, so it was alright. So, but it's not as good as Aaron Jones. But Josh Jacobs going to Green Bay, it's going to be a difference maker for that offense, especially with Jordan Love. Going over to the Minnesota Vikings, where, of course, they no longer have Kirk Cousins, where now they have Sam Darnold. And Sam Darnold's always been one of those guys where I believe he has always been the quarterback. He just had a bad start, and it just went downhill from there. Never had help. Never had nothing, really to help him with. But maybe over Kevin O'Connell, maybe he has something good for Sam Darnold. Hell, maybe they even go out and get a quarterback in the draft. And plus, with knowing you have Justin Jefferson wanting to re-sign, you better find a quarterback quick that can get you to re-sign. And I don't know if Sam Darnold's that guy to do that. Like, I feel like he can still be a good quarterback, but like, you need a quarterback that can take you to a championship. I don't know if Sam Darnold could do that now. Of course, they signed Aaron Jones to a 1-year, $7 million contract. Another rival player going to a rival team. Like I said, payback season for a lot of these people. Jonathan Grenard, a 4-year contract. Was a good player over there in Houston, looking to rattle the snakes over here in Minnesota. The Atlanta Falcons signing Kirk Cousins, Rondell Moore, and Darnell Mooney. Some big contract signs right there. Kirk Cousins is still, in my opinion, a playoff quarterback. I think he can definitely take them to the playoffs. I'm surprised that the Minnesota Vikings let him go, in my opinion. I'm surprised they let him go. But the Falcons, they picked him up. And now with Darnell Mooney, who has not been the same since his first 2 years in the league, but he can still get something out of him. And then Rondell Moore, who is just absolutely crazy, where they got a trade for him for Desmond Ridder, which Falcons fleeced him in that deal, in my opinion. So Falcons, they have a great offense going into next year. And also one of the things is Kyle Pitts. Kirk Cousins knows how to throw to tight ends. Expect the breakout season everyone's been wanting out of Kyle Pitts next year, in my opinion. Carolina Panthers, huge in the lineman department, Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt on huge contracts. Um, Also to help with Bryce Young, those are some big contracts for them. Also bringing in Deontay Johnson, and who can obviously help with more of that. And then bringing in Josie Jewell, very underrated linebacker, in my opinion. He's one of those guys that can get tackles and knows where his assignment is and can get there. Big signing right there. Um, Other than that, they haven't really did much, but those are some big contracts for there, especially with Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt. They spent a total of $153 million on them. They better prepare. They better be ready for Bryce Young and everything. So, um, New Orleans Saints, only thing they really did is they signed Willie Gay Jr. to a 1-year deal. Obviously leaving Kansas City Chiefs. He was a very good linebacker over there in Kansas City, hoping to bring the smoke over to New Orleans. Now, Tampa Bay, they didn't sign anyone huge, but I will say Baker deserved his money. Baker got a 3-year, $100 million contract. He deserves every bit of that contract. What he did last year was amazing. Almost beat Detroit in a playoff game. Huge. And it was so good that they were able to re-sign Mike Evans in the process. Tampa Bay is definitely going to be one of those teams you look into next year. And I always said Baker is he's good, still good. Cleveland fucked him at the end of his run, and they decided to ruin him through the last 2 years. And look who's sitting there with a $100 million contract. Well, Cleveland's still wondering who's going to be their quarterback at the end of next year. So, like I said, bad organizations make bad mistakes. Arizona Cardinals didn't really do much. They signed Jonah Williams and Sean Murphy Bunting. Two guys that are going to help with that team, plus Jonah Williams. Hasn't been the major tackle that everyone thinks he could have been, but they need something for Kyler Murray because coming off that ACL, still needs to get a good offensive line around him with that. And then Sean Murphy Bunting, who's a good corner that can get him interceptions and everything. He's a very versatile player that can come in there and still be number one guy over there. Rams didn't really do much of anything. And 49ers, they didn't really do much huge. Seattle got Sam Howell in a trade. And they traded for him, which also shows that he's going to be the future for the Seattle Seahawks, in my opinion. Geno Smith is still the quarterback, but Sam Howell, he can throw. He can throw a football. He can throw, and he's accurate. Yes, he had an interception problem last year, but so did Dak Prescott, and he was MVP up front runner, in my opinion, was the MVP last year. So those can just show for anything. But Seattle bringing in Sam Howell, it's gonna be great for them. Last team, I have to do it. The Dallas Cowboys. Very disappointed. Jerry Jones, start of the year, or start of the new league year, around that time, says we're going all in. Stephen Jones calms him down, saying no, we're not. And they're right. They didn't do shit. Like, I get, contract problems, salary cap issues, but you're gonna tell me you have no interest or your price is too high on every major player that has came through. Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones literally got a 1-year, $7 million contract. That's too much for you? couldn't even get A.J. Dillon. And right now, our number one running back is Deuce Vaughn, who, don't get me wrong, is a good running back. But he is not ready for that number one role just yet. Hell, they let Tyron Smith walk. Our offensive line lost two pieces. They released Michael Gallup and Leighton Vander Esch. Michael Gallup, in my opinion, after the ACL injury, he wasn't the same, but he still could get the ball. And Leighton Vander Esch, most likely a career-ending injury. So, but they did come in with a gem, and Eric Kendricks. I will do the positive and talk about Eric Kendricks. He is a guy who worked in Mike Zimmer's defense. He worked with them for multiple years, so I'm very happy about that. And bringing in a linebacker that we desperately needed for years. But in my opinion, they could have done this last year and the year before, but they wait until now when all their pieces are going away to do it. It could be they could build to the draft, but last year's draft class was not great. They need to get serious, and I mean majorly serious, this year. And it has to be this year. I get it, like, could have been last year, could have been the year before that, but you got to look at that team. Not many people are getting any younger over there. You need to re-sign Parsons, Dak, CeeDee Lamb over the next year and a half. Plus, you got aging players that, who knows, could retire in the next fucking 3 months for all we know. Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones need to sit down, and Mike McCarthy need to sit down and go, what we need to make this team better. And none of this cheap bullshit. None of this cheap, overpriced bullshit that, we didn't like the price range. They need to go in there and pay. They literally paid Dak $140 million after an ankle injury, after a first-round playoff exit. You're telling me you're willing to pay that, but won't pay big contracts to running backs that you need, to linemen that you need, linebackers that you need, corners that you need. They need to bring back Stephon Gilmore. That's what they need to do. And with how many free agents are still left on this board here, you still got Trent Brown, Chase Elliott, that's NASCAR, Chase Young, Kevin Zeitler, Justin Simmons, Stephon Gilmore, Steven Nelson, Connor Williams, Jadavion Clowney, Mekhi Becton, Dalton Reisner, Julian Blackmon, Jerome Baker, Odell. You have so many options to look forward to. There's still time. There's still time to bring people in. But if you're going to look to the draft, and plus knowing that Jimmy Johnson's now inside the team, knowing that he's in there, as an advisor or whatever, knowing that they want to build to the draft, Jerry, all of them need to have the best draft class that they've ever had. Every draft pick needs to be All-Star, Pro Bowl, All-Pro, Hall of Fame caliber. Otherwise, you can go another year without winning a Super Bowl. Every franchise of every team knows that you're not as vicious as they are. Go into a season where all the fans know that they got no hope. You got the fans that say that they got hope, but deep down know they don't got hope. And then you got a person like me who is very frustrated with the situation of not signing nobody. It's hard to defend that team sometimes when the inside of the organization sucks majorly. And as long as Jerry's alive, and who knows how many years that could be, I don't see this team going anywhere sooner, because you got Stephen Jones, the cheap-ass fucking douchebag on the side, who ain't going to do shit for the team to get better. But who knows? I could be wrong. They could go out, get a splash, go into the draft, and win a fucking Super Bowl. But that's all in my fucking dreams for now. Y'all have a good day. Stay blessed. Have a good night.